Direction broadcast. For all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Pastor Pope, and thank you for allowing us to come into your viewing environment. We hope that everyone here in the U.S. had a safe and enjoyable Thanksgiving, but we know that we are in a phase of COVID that we have to slow down our activities. So I want to say to everyone who was cautious and everyone who remained safe and kept others safe, this too shall pass, and next year we'll be together again as we always have been, enjoying our Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. Today's Daily Divine Direction broadcast, as always, is brought to you by Fiji Water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock. The water collects in a natural artesian aquifer where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. And for those of you who continue giving on the Give segment of our app at New Life Delaware, and those of you that have made a weekly or monthly commitment to support the broadcast, we don't take you for granted. We thank you for your continued support and your commitment as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here to address whatever topics you might like to discuss, whatever issues of life you find challenging or that you find difficult to navigate. You can call or text on the T-Mobile caller text line at 267-992-1424. You can discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families, dating relationships. Whatever's in your heart and whatever's on your mind, God is concerned about that which concerns you. So we are here in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. And as always, you can continue to communicate with me on the Connect card on our app or through email, as you always have done, at newlifepastor@comcast.net. So we welcome your communications so that we can address them. As God speaks to me, I will speak to you on subsequent broadcasts. So continue communicating and staying tuned in on our 3D Daily Divine Direction broadcast. I do want to say to all of our listeners and viewers, before I get into the communications, a couple of items that I need to address. One is that we are, as you know, live on Facebook. We are also live on YouTube. We are still on our app and on our website. However, we are right now going through system upgrades, but I wanted to make certain that we got in today to address communications and to remind everyone that this Thursday with us will be our monthly contributor, Rebecca Buva, licensed and registered dietitian and nutritionist. We are just coming out of the Thanksgiving holiday, pardon me, and we will be entering into the Christmas holiday. So we want to make certain that we get our health right, that we get our health and wellness right. And that requires us to focus on our diet and nutrition. So, of course, as always, Becca Buva will be with us. And she's always with us the first Thursday of every month. If there's ever a change in schedule, that will be announced. But we are looking forward to her being with us this Thursday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I will be responding to your questions, or I should say I will be presenting your questions for response to Rebecca Buva, licensed and registered dietitian and nutritionist. So I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your daughter has planned her wedding in 2020. She had a wedding plan, and you are saying now that it appears that, in 2021, that it's not going to happen. I'm trying to make certain that we are up and not interrupted. And of course, my sinuses are bothering me today, allergies. and sinus are bothering me today. So just stay with me as I get through the broadcast today. It was my desire to be with everyone, so I just wanted to make certain that we got through some of the communications. We don't want them to back up. Your daughter had a wedding plan for 2021. It appears that it is not going to happen, and you want to know what you can do because the venue is not giving her back her deposit. You want to know what steps you can take because she's heartbroken now, and you want to help her get over the disappointment. So there's a lot going on here. Let me say what I started with today about the period of time that we're in right now. And of course, it is going into 2021, and you know, our thoughts are that by the third quarter of next year, things will be back to a semblance of normalcy, which I understand, even though you didn't give me the date, that does include your daughter's planned wedding. And I understand she's heartbroken about this, but I don't want to diminish what you're feeling or what she's feeling. What I do want to do is respond to you in the way that God has shown me, and that is to find peace in this. And what I'm going to say to you is this. You have to remind her over and over again, this is just 1 year. It's really going to turn out to be about an 18-month period for us. But this is 1 year out of our lives. And you want everyone to be safe, and you want your family to be safe, and you want everyone who attends her wedding to be safe. So I'm going to say to you, this would be the practical steps to take. The venue may not want to give her a refund. However, if you talk with them and you do it in a way that is having an appropriate conversation with them, they may be I'll go one step further, because God showed me in that secret place. They won't give her a refund, but they will allow her to move the date. Move it back further towards the second half of the third quarter, or even towards the end of the year. They have a booking on their calendar, and businesses are trying to hold everything together that they possibly can. Venues are really focused on not refunding deposits. The suggestion that I'm going to make to you is what God has spoken to me, and that is that if you approach them in a way that you are trying to work with them, they'll try to work with you. Just tell them you'd like to move it out to a later date. And then because your daughter is ready to get married, just go ahead and be married. There's someone who can officiate the ceremony for your daughter and your soon-to-be son-in-law to get married. There's someone who can do that. And they'll be willing to do it so that they can enter into holy matrimony, into being a married couple, which is what they desire to be. So having said that, you have to recognize that it's not, listen, this is not the end of the world. This is the end of a moment that they had planned. They had chosen a date, but they can find another date to have the celebration at a later time if that's what they choose to do. They can still be married on the date they've chosen, or before, whatever is the will of God and convenient for them, that fits within the parameters that they would like to fit within. They can do that, and they can still have their ceremony their celebration at a later time, and even renew their vow if they choose to do that. Their vows if they choose to do that at the celebration. There are ways to pivot, make the necessary adjustments to enjoy a quality of life even while we're going through this period of time. This is not a period of time that any of us have control over. It's not something that we get to control. We have to understand that this is simply God having his way in all of our lives. And we have to recognize the significance of that by saying, God, I'm only going to concern myself with what is your will. And if we do that, we can find peace. And one thing that we all should be looking for at this point in our lives is the peace of God. We should not concern ourselves with what is not perfect peace. We should not concern ourselves with anything that is not the will of God. This is a time that as humans we find difficult to deal with. But there are so many benefits that are coming from this, that this is a global adjustment, restart. This is not something that man has created. This is something that God has allowed to occur. And we have to recognize that we really cannot resist what needs to be done. And I want to encourage you to encourage her that God's will is going to be done in her life. She will be a wife, and she will get married if we do everything decently and in order. If we just make the decision that we're going to let God be God. She's going to get married. She's going to begin her life with her new husband, and they can have their celebration at a later date. That's going to heal her heart. That's going to help her to continue to move on. She's been waiting for this day for a very long time. I understand that. And when I say a very long time, you didn't say this in your communication, but your daughter's in her mid-30s, so she's been waiting for this for most of her adult life. And now it's here. And that's why she's feeling a sense of brokenheartedness. Continue to encourage her. This too shall be all right. It will be well with her soul. It will be completed, because what God has spoken shall come to pass. And God has brought the two of them together. That's one thing that you can be assured of. Let me tell you how you know. Let me just take a moment and walk you through this. Your daughter has always gone to church with you and your husband. She's in her 30s. That's not a common thing in today's society, that young people are still going to church with their parents. She then has brought her intended before he proposed. He was attending church with the four of you. You were spending your Sunday afternoons together. You were doing things that families do. You were really enjoying bringing him into the family. Because he was willing to worship with you all, to attend church with you all, that's the sign that God brought him into your lives. Now, we all have to work out our salvation and work on our relationship with the Lord, the daily relationship. But he's doing his part in working out his, I'll call it his weekly relationship with the Lord. We all have to work out our salvation. This is someone that God brought into her life, and God never speaks, and his word returns to him empty. What he speaks shall come to pass. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest nationwide 5G provider at no extra charge. So if you are not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will move you over into our queue so that you can experience T-Mobile, America's largest nationwide 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill as you become a T-Mobile customer. If you auto pay by attaching the credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill at T-Mobile, America's largest nationwide 5G provider at no extra charge. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you want your significant other to get on the same page with you. Okay, so there's something going on here when you say you want him to get married, you want to buy a home, you want to have children. However, he wants to continue living single. Here's the problem. You're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. You ask, and at the end of your question, how do you get him on the same page? You don't get him on the same page. He's not the one for you. He's the one you've been having a relationship with. He's the one who's been filling the hole that is absent in your heart because you haven't been found by the man that God has appointed for your life. And the reason you haven't been found by the man who's appointed by God for your life is because you haven't prepared yourself to be his wife. You want to fit this square peg into a round hole because you like the way the two of you live. You like the way the two of you hang out together. You like the way the two of you go out to eat. You like the things that the two of you are doing right now. He's not ready to do anything different. He wants to keep doing what you've always done. And if it weren't you, it'd be someone else. Now, I want you to understand, I'm not a dream killer. I'm a dream builder. I'm a vision builder. You've got to have a bigger vision than the person who's your significant other right now. He's not interested in getting married right now. And he won't be for several years to come. He's not ready to buy a house or buy a home because he is quite content paying rent and living in an apartment. There's no responsibility. There's no attachment. There's no concern about building wealth because he just wants to hang out. He's not ready to have children and be a father. He's told you all of that in so many words. The problem is you haven't been listening. You've been trying to get him on the same page that you're on. And you've gotten to that page during the course of your relationship. Let me rephrase that. You've gotten to the chapter of that book during the course of your relationship. Your friends are getting married. Both of you are getting older by the day. We all are. You know it's time, but you can't fit a square peg into a round hole. It is time. It is time for you to prepare yourself to be someone's wife. It's time for you to prepare yourself for that. It's time for you to prepare yourself, pardon me, for the person that God has appointed for your life. It's time for you to prepare for that. But if you're being the significant other of someone who's irresponsible, who is just hanging out and having a good time in life, then you have to understand that that's the same way you're living. If you're the significant other of someone who's living that way, that's the same way you're living. So it's time to make a change. The fact is that you now had a revelation. You've had a revelation of a vision for what you want for your life. You want to get married, you want to buy a home, you want to have children. Those are 3 things that God has appointed for your life. However, until you show up for the appointment, you really cannot expect to be appointed. You know, it's like applying for a new position. You don't just send your resume, get scheduled for an interview, and just show up for the interview. Some people do, and that's why they never perform at the highest level. You always look at the company, look at their stability. You do your research. You analyze, how can I grow within that company? How can I become the best version of myself? What's professional development going to look like for me? Those are all things you have to do before you show up for the interview. Whether the interview's in person or on Zoom. That's not an endorsement for Zoom. There's a lot of them out there, but it's the one we're all using right now. There's Team, there's I think another one, but that's beside the issue. I just wanted to make that clear. The point is that you have to prepare. You have to prepare by doing your research. You have to prepare by analyzing what's your sustainability within the company, what's your long-term benefit of becoming part of that company. What's your professional development going to look like? Those are all things that you have to do before you ever show up for the interview. And then when you show up for the interview, because you're prepared and because you've done taken all the necessary steps to be the one chosen, that's when you receive the appointment. I promise somebody will get that later. The appointment is when that person that God has assigned for your life then finds you, you're already prepared. You're prepared to be a wife. You're prepared to be a homeowner. You're prepared to be a parent. You've prepared yourself. When opportunity and preparation merge together, that's when we have new life. That's when we have the life that God has appointed for us. Opportunity and preparation, but they have to merge together. It can't just be, this is what I want to do, but I'm not prepared to do it. And then once you get into that, which is going to take me into the next communication, we have to build the marriage and the better quality of life. And I'm going to address that in the next communication. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Charles Tyrwhitt, located in London, the UK. They also have stores in New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and at the King of Prussia Mall in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So if you are in any of those areas, check their website at ctshirts.com. Find the store. Stop in at their retail store. They have everything that a man could possibly need. Shirts for men, ties for men, suits for men, and accessories. If you're not in any of those areas, you can order from Charles Tyrwhitt at ctshirts.com. They will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. And the White Company, located in London, the UK. They also have a store on Fifth Avenue in New York. So if you're in New York, check for their hours of store opening. Stop in at the retail store. They have everything that you could possibly need. Home goods, clothing for men, women, and children. If you're not in New York, you can order from The White Company at thewhitecompany.com. They too will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your marriage has come to an end. It is time for you to start over again. However, you want to know, how do you do that at your age? So the question you must ask yourself is, why has your marriage come to an end? Why do you think that your marriage should come to an end? You know, one of the things that we have to recognize about marriage is that marriage, first of all, is a marital contract. It is a covenant, first of all, between you, your spouse, and God. Now, we all know divorce happens. Let me make certain that everyone understands that. Divorce can happen, divorce does happen. And it is always because, and most people don't realize this, but people will say it's because of, abuse, it's because of finances, it's because of infidelity, it's because of, my favorite one that people will use is irreconcilable differences. In other words, we're different and there's no way that we can reconcile our thought process. That happens too. But none of that is really the real reason that divorce happens. The real reason that divorce happens is because the person that we connect ourselves to is not the person that God has assigned for our lives. And eventually, it will come to an end. So you have to first ask yourself, and is that the first criteria? That this person that I've been married to is not the person that God assigned in my life. Now, you can determine that by, am I in an abusive relationship? Am I in a relationship that I cannot tolerate because it is detrimental to my health and wellness? Am I in a marriage that is destroying my health and wellness? You got to ask yourself these questions. And if all of that is part of the factor, then you have to say to yourself, and I understand this, that this is not the person God has assigned for my life. I chose them not because God chose them for me, but because I wanted them. Now, once you've done that, and once you understand that it's destroying your health and wellness, if it's not abusive, but it's destroying your health and wellness, then that's something different. You cannot have a quality of life without health and wellness. Finances you can always build. You can always build. But health and wellness is a whole different issue. So, you have to ask yourself, why is it coming to an end? If it is just coming to an end because you feel, and God allowed me to see in that secret place of your life what's really going on with you, you are right now having what some people will term as a midlife crisis. Most people think only men have midlife crisis. Men have midlife crisis because it's generally outward. We do things like everyone knows what a midlife crisis looks like. We start wearing clothes we've never worn before. We start buying sports cars. We start doing things we've never done before. Women may internalize their midlife crisis. They start hanging out with their girlfriends, they start doing things with their hair. They internalize their midlife crisis. You're going through a midlife crisis right now, but you don't need to let that crisis destroy your marriage. You know, some of these things, in the interest of time, some of these things we're going to have to discuss a little further. We're going to discuss this one a little further. We're going to discuss the one that I ended on